The human rammed the colossal alien doors open with a powerful kick, strolling into the chamber as hundreds of freakish alien eyes glared at him. "And that's how fragile your security is compared to human muscle," General Roberts said bluntly, his mouth twisted up in a rebellious smirk. "Now let me tell you the real truth about humans." Glances shot between the aliens. Some of the creatures chittered in surprise, others narrowed their beady eyes in rage. The human stood alone at the center podium, an intruder in this sanctum of galactic politics. Bulky Qatarian guards aimed plasma rifles at him, insectoid pincers twitching on triggers. The slightest excuse and they'd paint the assembly floor red with human blood. General Roberts just straightened his medals, unfazed. His crisp military uniform was stark against the exotic alien garbs. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders. One wrong word here could mean war. An invasion fleet was poised at Earth's borders, ready to scorch the human homeworld, if the Qatarians deemed them a threat to the galaxy. It all came down to this. The human planted his fists on the podium, staring defiantly at the Qatarian ruler's compound eyes. "Your ignorance endangers us all," General Roberts began. "If you attack, you'll be making the gravest mistake of your miserable alien lives. Let me tell you what humans are really capable of." General Roberts gave a solemn nod at Galen's stern admonishment. Facing the outraged assembly, he spoke, "I want to first address the incident that brought me before you today, the so-called human attack on your SHOCKS colony." Pandemonium erupted. Alien delegates leapt to their feet, multi-jointed limbs stabbing accusing appendages at the lone human. Their shouts reverberated through the grand chamber. It took Galen hammering his gavel repeatedly to restore a modicum of order. The human officer was a pillar of calm amidst the storm. "The truth is, no human forces carried out that assault. It was a false flag, orchestrated by rogue elements in the Qatarian military itself, to fracture the uneasy peace between us." From his breast pocket, General Roberts produced a small data chip. He slotted it into the podium. A moment later, a holographic display flared to life over the assembly floor. It showed Qatarian warships, crudely painted with human insignias, raining destruction on SHOCKS. Even the most belligerent aliens fell into a shocked silence as the damning footage played out. "This is a grave charge, General," Galen said, compound eyes narrowing as he scrutinized the holo. "What proof have you that this record is authentic?" A mirthless smile ghosted across the human's lips. "The proof is in the wreckage of those human ships conveniently destroyed in the raid. My experts analyzed the debris. The vessels were Qatarian, not human. We also intercepted comms between the rogues and collaborators in your own government, discussing the planned false flag." That did it. The chamber exploded into a maelstrom of shouting and recrimination as the delegates turned on each other. Through the din, General Roberts stood unbowed, his voice cutting across the cacophony. "But this incident barely scratches the surface. The real reason I stand before you now is to expose the truth of human Qatarian history and the secret your government has long suppressed." The human drew in a deep breath, his eyes flicking up to the holo display. Images swirled into existence above the assembly. Flickering pictures of a fateful first contact played out, human and Qatarian diplomats clasping appendages and inking their names on fledgling treaties. For a moment there was a glimmer of what could have been, two civilizations standing on the cusp of a new era of cooperation. But as human ships ventured further into the stars, bringing our worlds and culture to the galaxy at large, some among the Qatarians grew fearful, covetous. They saw not friends, but rivals for power, General Roberts said grimly. His fingers danced across the podium controls. The holo shifted, displaying shadowed Qatarian figures skulking through the corridors of human outposts, planting explosives, sabotaging equipment. These elements began a clandestine campaign to subvert humanity's efforts, to poison the well of goodwill between our peoples. Another tap, and the display changed once more. Now it showed riots erupting on human colony worlds, Qatarian agents sowing discord among the populace. But even these insidious efforts were only the prelude to their ultimate treachery. The human's face was etched with old pain as he stared at the hollow. It depicted a blue-green orb, serene and beautiful, suspended in the starry void. Earth. Then, in a heartbeat, the skies above humanity's ancestral home filled with the angular shapes of Catarian warships. Lances of plasma rained down, scouring the planet's surface, boiling away oceans, igniting the very atmosphere. The representatives watched in horrified silence as the recording played, listened to the anguished screams of millions snuffed out in an instant, the cries of human soldiers hopelessly outmatched, making their last stand against the Catarian onslaught. General Roberts' voice was soft, yet it carried to every corner of the chamber. "We call it the Great Betrayal. In one fell swoop, the Catarians decimated our defenses and left our homeworld in ruins. The death toll—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "Suffice to say, it was a blow from which we are still recovering." The human straightened, and there was steel in his gaze as it swept across the assembled aliens. When the fires had burned out and the true extent of Catarian infiltration was laid bare, humanity had a choice to make. We could have let our rage consume us, lashed out in vengeance. A tap, and the display changed to a scene of desolation, the ruined spires of a human city jutting like broken teeth amidst a blasted landscape. But there, striding across the rubble, came a small group of figures, human and Catarian, side by side. But even in our darkest hour, we understood that the crimes of a cabal were not the will of the Catarian people. We knew that the path to lasting peace lay not in retribution, but in reconciliation. The hollow showed the leaders standing together, their grips firm, as they signed new accords. And so we extended the hand of friendship once more, seeking to build bridges instead of walls. General Roberts sighed heavily, a sound freighted with the burdens of history. But the wounds of the Great Betrayal are deep and slow to heal. Trust, once shattered, is not easily restored. He fixed Galen with a pointed stare. In the centuries since, humanity has watched the Catarian Empire closely, ever wary of a resurgence of the old hostilities. And now, with the attack on Zarthox, it seems our vigilance was justified. General Roberts met Galen's gaze squarely, the human's eyes hard as flint. "We must act swiftly and decisively, High Counselor. The rogue faction's plan is already in motion. Every moment we delay brings them closer to their goal." The human gestured to the hollow display, now showing a star map of Tarian space. Red markers flashed at key strategic points, military bases, shipyards, seats of government. Our intelligence suggests they will strike at these locations simultaneously, aiming to cripple your defenses and seize control in one fell swoop. We believe the attack is imminent, likely within the next solar cycle. Galen's mandibles clicked in agitation. "How can you be certain of this, General? What proof do you have?" In answer, Roberts tapped a command into the podium. The display zoomed in on one of the red markers, revealing a sprawling military complex. Catarian ships crowded the landing pads, soldiers in the distinctive armor of the rogue faction drilling in the courtyards. This footage was taken less than a rotation ago by our stealth probes. Notice the increased activity, the massing of troops and hardware. They're preparing for something big. The human's gaze swept the chamber, his voice grave. "We've seen this pattern before in the lead-up to the attack on Zarthox. Trust me, High Counselor, they will make their move soon." Galen sagged back in his chair, the weight of the revelation pressing down on him. His compound eyes flicked from the damning images to the assembled counselors. Some looked shocked, others suspicious. A few, tellingly, appeared nervous. "What would you have us do, General?" Galen asked, his voice strained. "The Catarian military is formidable, but if what you say is true, if the rot has spread so deep, I fear we may not have the strength to stop this coup alone." Roberts leaned forward, his expression intense. "You won't be alone, High Counselor. Even now the human fleet is mobilizing, ready to stand with you against this threat. We have no desire to see the Catarian Empire fall into the hands of these extremists." The general raised a hand to forestall the objections rising from the councillors. I know there are those among you who still mistrust humanity, who see our offer of aid as a ploy for power. But I assure you, our only interest is in maintaining stability and peace." He gestured to the holo display, the red markers pulsing like angry wounds. "If the rogue faction succeeds, if they seize control of the Tarian Empire and its vast military machine, they will not stop at your borders. Their ambition and hatred will drive them to lash out at all who stand in their way, human and alien alike." Robert's voice dropped, becoming a low, urgent rumble. "This is a threat to the entire galaxy, High Counselor. Only by standing together, by putting aside our differences and old grievances, can we hope to stop it." In the heavy silence that followed, all eyes turned to Galen. The High Counselor seemed to age before their eyes, the weight of the decision settling on his narrow shoulders. At last he drew himself up, his exoskeleton straightening with resolve. "The Qatarian Empire accepts your offer of assistance, General Roberts. May the ancestors forgive me if I am wrong, but I see no other choice." The human nodded solemnly. "You are making the right decision, High Counselor. Together we will face this crisis and emerge stronger for it. The rogue faction will learn the true strength of human Qatarian unity." Galen's mandibles clicked in grim agreement. He turned to the assembled councillors, many still muttering among themselves. "This council is adjourned. Prepare your forces, honored representatives. A storm is coming, and we must be ready to weather it." He brought his gavel down in a resounding crack, "For the Empire and for the galaxy." As the councillors filed out, a buzz of urgent conversation filling the chamber, General Roberts caught Galen's eye. A look of understanding passed between them, a shared acknowledgement of the difficult road ahead. The holo display flickered, the red markers casting an ominous glow. In that moment it seemed to General Roberts that they represented not just military targets, but the fate of the galaxy itself, balanced on the edge of a knife. He squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For the sake of humanity, for the sake of all the races of the galaxy, failure was not an option. The Qatarian guards fell into step around him as he strode from the chamber, the weight of the future pressing down on him like a physical thing. But beneath it, a flicker of hope burned in his chest. That the first tentative step had been taken on the long road to reconciliation. If they could weather this storm, if they could stand together against this common threat, perhaps there was a chance for a brighter future, one where the scars of the past could truly begin to heal. It was a slender hope, fragile as a candle flame in the tempest, but it was a start. General Roberts' words hung heavy in the air, the weight of his proposal pressing down on the assembled delegates. The fate of the galaxy teetered on a knife's edge. "We must act swiftly and decisively," the human repeated, his voice a low rumble. "The rogue faction must be rooted out and brought to justice, and the Qatarian government must be stabilized to prevent further chaos." He turned slowly, his gaze sweeping across the sea of alien faces, some shocked, others calculating. "I propose a joint operation between human and Qatarian forces, overseen by a neutral third party, to investigate and dismantle the rogue faction. We must put aside our differences and work together to preserve the peace and stability of the galaxy." In the silence that followed, the tension was a palpable thing. Representatives shifted in their seats, exchanging glances, heavy with unspoken communication. The seconds ticked by, each one an eternity. Finally, High Counselor Galen rose to his feet, his exoskeleton clicking with the motion. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with resignation. "The Qatarian Empire accepts your proposal, General Roberts. We will work with you to root out this corruption and bring those responsible to justice." Relief flickered across the human's face, there and gone in an instant. He inclined his head to the High Counselor, respect and gratitude in the gesture. "Thank you, High Counselor. I believe that together we can overcome this crisis and build a stronger, more united galaxy." With a final nod, he stepped down from the podium, his boots ringing on the polished floor. Around him, the council session was breaking up, representatives rising from their seats and filing towards the exits, a buzz of urgent conversation filling the air. But even as the chamber emptied, General Roberts couldn't shake a sense of unease, a prickling at the back of his neck. He knew all too well that the road ahead would be long and difficult, the scars of the past not easily healed. Lost in thought, he made his way through the winding corridors of the council building, heading for the landing pad where his ship awaited. He was so preoccupied that he almost didn't notice the Ktarian aide hurrying towards him, a data pad clutched in their hand. "General Roberts, sir," the aide called out, drawing up short before him. "There's something you need to see." Frowning, the human took the proffered data pad, his eyes scanning the contents. As he read, his face drained of color, his grip on the device tightening until his knuckles showed white. It was a message, a declaration of intent from the leader of the rogue faction. The words burned themselves into his mind, chilling and implacable. "You may have exposed us, General, but you cannot stop us. The Ktarian Empire will be ours, and humanity will pay for its interference. Prepare for war." For a long moment, General Roberts stood frozen, the weight of those words settling on his shoulders like a physical thing. Then, with a shake of his head, he handed the datapad back to the aide, his jaw set with determination. He knew now that the crisis was far from over, that the true battle was only just beginning. As he strode up the ramp of his waiting ship, the thrum of the engines vibrating through the deck plates, he couldn't help but wonder if he had done enough, if any of them had done enough to prevent the galaxy from descending once more into the chaos and destruction of war. The narrator's voice faded as the ship lifted off, the Ktarian homeworld falling away beneath it. The future was uncertain, the balance of power precarious. And on the long journey back to Earth, to warn his people and prepare for the conflict to come, General Roberts couldn't shake the feeling that the fate of the galaxy itself hung in the balance, the promise of a brighter future teetering on the edge of a knife. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.